SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
The Country Club on the Square, back 9 at 308 South Lamar in Oxford. Great food with weekly specials, a full bar and patio, plus 4 multi-sport simulator bays. Stop by for Teeny Tuesday and Singo on Wednesdays. Follow them on Instagram and online at back9oxford.com.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
How was the weekend?
Oh, not too bad. About yours?
Yeah, same deal. I'm about ready to see the big eye in the sky. Okay, I know we needed some rain, and we got plenty of that. My gosh, did we ever. I'm ready to see some sunshine. May, typically a great month of the year for relatively mild temperatures, certainly compared to what we experience in July and August and September, the dog days of summer. But need a little sunshine. Plenty of rain. Looks good, I think, for the rest of the week at this point, once these pesky clouds clear on out of here. What about our friends in the southern part of the state? I've been trying to keep up with what's happening there on social media. Looks like some folks still without power, I believe, and some donation locations have been set up for those in need, many of whom, of course, just lost everything, devastated. Man, this is just getting to be too regular, it seems like, doesn't it? Where there's bad weather that moves through our state and affects some area, sometimes multiple areas. That was the case certainly last week. I think Lawrence, Lincoln, and Lamar counties, the hardest hit. I've seen that representatives, senators from the area, Becky Curry comes to mind from Lincoln County, have been appealing to folks to help out, as we certainly should. So we pray for them and just hope that we have a relatively calm remaining of the spring. And then, of course, we roll right into hurricane season. We had Scott Simmons on with us last week from MEMA, discussing Hurricane Preparedness Week. So just make sure you have a plan. Certainly those of us, our friends on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in the southern part of the state. Speaking of parts of the state, headed up to the Delta Council Day Friday. Appreciate Dave for filling in. Always a great event. You know, it's one of those things, Rhino, you feel like, man, this is like quintessential Mississippi here. Really just showcases the best of our state, and it's kind of fun. Everybody's out in their cotton finery. Of course, you're in the Delta. Got to have on the cotton and linen clothing. Seersucker, quite popular. And the Delta Council folks did a great job, presented several awards, including to some of our young aspiring Deltans. Always good to see that. And this year had the chairman of House Ag Committee over there in the U.S. House was the keynote speaker. And really good remarks, I thought, as well. That's Glenn Thompson. He's from Pennsylvania. You don't often think of Pennsylvania as that doesn't come to the top of your mind when you think agriculture. But then you really have to stop and think about it. First, it's a big state land-wise, and you got two relatively large urban areas. You got Philadelphia in the east, Pittsburgh in the west, and in between's a bunch of farmland, honestly. Ohio's another state like that. Again, you don't think agriculture a lot. Typically, you associate that with the South and the central part of the country, the Midwest. But Representative Thompson, they're fortunate, think about that, to come to the Mississippi Delta, he being the chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture. And he delivered remarks where he certainly recognized the value, the contributions of Mississippi's agricultural industry to the well-being of our country. Talked about the farm bill that just got passed and the fact that this administration is agriculture friendly and working further on policy that would benefit our agricultural community, without which we got nothing to eat and no clothes to put on the old body. So they're pretty important. A whole bunch of other stuff as well we produce from the commodities that they produce. The drought, however, Rhino, you've seen reports of this, really taking its toll. Man, I feel for the farmers in our state and across the nation, just beset with so many challenges, just a series of headwinds that are difficult to withstand, but these are incredibly resilient people, our farmers, that know how to deal with these kinds of challenges and get through them. But, man, the drought really taking its toll, not something that we talk about here, but, we still are technically experiencing a drought. Despite all this rain we got, I saw a map on that over the weekend. Certainly the delta part of our state, which is where a lot of our agriculture is, it's way under.
Yeah, especially northern Tallahatchie County, and I want to say, is it the southeastern tip of Quitman?
Yeah.
Where they're under like the most severe level of drought that can be measured.
I mean, it's when you look at a map that's color-coded, it's in that red. I mean, meaning that it's experienced the worst conditions. It's been building for some time. Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, record dry conditions between September 25 and this year. I mean, was it March? It was in April, actually, right? Where you typically have lots of rain in the Magnolia State. It was a very dry month. Certainly was around here. I just don't remember too much rain. It seems like it kicked in here recently in the month of May, which can kind of go either way. It's sort of the transition period. But farmers, environmentalists across the country are warning that food supplies may be impacted. Wildfires might blight areas where they are usually not seen. I'm always a little skeptical when I see environmentalists involved because they go overboard. No, I know you're shocked at that. But the farmers themselves, yeah, I trust them in what they have to say. So certainly concerns about that continue, and hopefully we will get out of this drought situation and return to normal levels of rainfall to help those folks out. Certainly need it. Redistricting, wow. There's so much going on there, honestly. It's hard to wrap your head around, keep up with, because we've got the national scene and landscape of redistricting, and then, of course, we've got a special session coming up here in the great state of Mississippi. That's when the governor has called back those legislators to the Capitol. It's on the 20th, right, Rhino? May the 20th is when they'll be reconvening. However, it's the House that's going to be meeting in the old Capitol. Man, have you seen the room where they're going to be meeting? It's a little compact relative to the generous surroundings to which they are accustomed. Certainly don't have those big old leather chairs. You've seen that, hadn't you? They're going to kind of semicircular movie theater style, thinking about the old movie theater days where you were just crammed on top of each other. But they're going to be coming back at this point, focused on redistricting, redrawing the Supreme Court districts here in the great state of Mississippi, all triggered by a lawsuit. There's still some question as to whether or not the governor, who is the only person that could do so, would add to the call redistricting, redrawing the districts associated with our United States House districts. We have 4, of course, even though our Constitution says we have 5. With respect to the ballot initiative process, what a joke that is. We have 4, and so there's some question as to whether or not the governor would call those legislators back to, hey, you guys redraw those as well, with, of course, the intention, the goal of drawing them such that old Benny Thompson would have to go back home. Been there 33 years. We're taking a break right now with Luke Bryan and Rain is a Good Thing bumping us out of this segment. Jeremy Nelson, president of Element Wealth, is next. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I paid the bank note, the car note, and yes, I paid the phone bill too. And then I turned around and I found that the house note's due. Well, I'd love to take you out like I said I would, honey, but there's too much month at the end of the money. Well, I got a little favor.
Too much month at the end of the money, man. That, I think, is a pretty good message and description of today's environment as we welcome Jeremy Nelson, the president of Element Wealth, to the Element Wealth studio. All right, Jeremy, good to see you.
Good to see y'all.
So I'm shocked at the market's resiliency. We've got the price of oil. So for a while there, since this war started, every day when the price of oil went up, markets went down, vice versa. I mean, they just worked in opposition of each other. Now they seem to be shrugging it off a bit, and maybe it's almost like investors are saying, I don't know what's going to happen with this Iran thing. We're just going to keep on trucking. Lots of other data as well that investment analysts are digesting and consuming. What do you think?
So the market will tend to climb the wall of worry, for a period of time.
Yeah.
And, really what you look at is there's a level of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Go back to 1999. Go back to 2007, right? There were things that were brewing, but the market just kept kind of chugging higher and higher and higher until it didn't, right? So, we get the war, oil prices spike, the market kind of freaks out about that. And then all of a sudden, you go through a few weeks, and next thing you know, you just become kind of immune to the news. And we're going through a really good corporate earnings season right now. A lot of investment still in the economy. We have a investment-led economy right now versus growth and consumption. And so, the market's just kind of shrugging it off right now. There's a lot of piling into some, the sectors around the AI build out, and we'll see where it goes from here. I would say that the longer that oil prices stay elevated, the more impact that it starts to have on the overall economy.
Okay. Well, there have been some reports you've probably seen the consumer is feeling a little bleak. And that's probably the first time we've seen that in a while, right?
Well, yeah, and we saw it in the data last year, right? Last year you actually had a slight, flat to slight decline in durable goods sales, right? Services, continue to grow, but the GDP growth that we got last year was all from this investment. And it's still the same thing, right? This investment in the build out of artificial intelligence and infrastructure is what's driving the economy right now. The question is, okay, at what point does that investment begin to slow down? Eventually it gets built.
Yeah.
Right. And I still think we got some runway on the build out.
Yeah, I do too. And I think most analysts and market analysts and economists are all saying that as well. And the Trump administration is saying the same thing. Now, I'm not sure I'm on board with this, but they tend to give the most rosy forecasts, do the Trump administration. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and Kevin Hassett, the Council of Economic Advisors, the economic advisor in the West Wing, essentially. That's what they get paid to do. That's their job. I get it. And I like the optimism. I'm not sure if it's real.
You have to take what they say with a grain of salt. What else are they going to say, right? I mean, they're seeing the consumer confidence numbers. There's all this talk about the K-shaped economy.
Yeah.
You're going into a midterm.
Explain that to the folks, the K-shaped economy.
So the K-shaped economy is this idea that post-COVID, and I would argue this has been going on for a much longer period of time. But you really have people who have money and wealth, and it's continuing to grow, and so they're doing fine, and their consumption is good. But if you're on the lower end of the economy, right, that kind of median household income family, then things are a lot tougher. Right, the higher interest rates, right? It's more expensive to buy a house. You're seeing the cumulative effects of inflation that are hitting these households more than the households who have significant assets.
Yeah, the reports are that the lower, to your point about the K-shaped economy that we have, the lower earning Americans are finding themselves cash strapped.
Yeah.
And those that have money are doing well in the markets despite the geopolitical pressures and the price of oil, and corporate earnings continue to remain strong, which is a bit shocking.
Corporate earnings are strong, and really if you look at, say, like the 493, so let's kind of strip out the Mag 7, what you saw was really almost a profits recession for your kind of core economy, and then we're starting to see a turnaround in the earnings there. So you're getting some strong earnings growth out of non-tech related companies right now.
Yeah. Well, I watched, of course, the business shows on Sunday. I'm sure you do as well. And the question that was posed of Kevin Hassett in the White House there, the economic advisors, do you still see, what do you see in terms of GDP growth for this year? And he still is forecasting 4%. But we fell short of that last year when it was forecast 4%, right?
Well,
with 2.1, 2.5.
Yeah, I mean,
like
we were supposed to be 5% in the fourth quarter, and it came in around 2%.
Yeah.
We've talked about this for a long time. The reality is that we have a 2% economy. Right. And it'll ebb and flow, a little higher, a little lower. But we have kind of the U.S. is a very large economy. It's hard to move it up. It's hard to move it down. It's very services based. And ultimately, we have an incredible amount of government debt, a lot of leverage that kind of drags us down a little bit right now. So, I think that, our forecast this year was we'd probably be around 2% again this year.
Safe bet.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's a safe bet. Kind of hang around there. But and he touted, of course, the continued massive investment being made in data center build-out and infrastructure, and all the chip companies, of course, semiconductor companies are benefited from that, along with a host of a large range of wide range of companies that are all involved in this, including the construction industry, of course.
And exactly, right? So I as long as you continue to have this massive amount of investment, then you're going to see an economy that's still growing, despite the fact that the consumer might not be growing quite as much.
Yeah, it's coming from CapEx from the corporate side. In fact, some analysts attribute about half of our GDP growth last year to that.
I would say at least half of it last year.
Yeah, to that one segment of the industries. That's kind of both a positive and a negative. It's a good thing because there's so much future opportunity, I think. It's a negative in that you become concentrated, and that investors always worry about concentration.
Well, you got to worry about the return on the investment.
Yeah.
Right. So, thus far, the return on investment isn't there. Now, we think that it will be there in the future, but we don't know. And so, when you think about the stocks that are really moving over the last 6 weeks now, you've got to have some pretty rosy glasses on to justify some of the valuations that are being paid.
Some of them, yeah.
Not all of them, but definitely some of them. And the question is, okay, once you get this build out, what's the investment? What's the cash flow in going into these sectors in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? Because when you look at a company and you value a company, what you're really trying to figure out is what's the net present value of all of its future cash flows. And so today, growth rates are really strong because of this investment. Does that growth rate continue into the future?
Yeah. And what we don't have the crystal ball on is, I used to say this when I was pitching private equity guys in the industry, is I don't know what we're going to be selling in 3 to 5 years. It hadn't been invented yet. That's the good news, right? Yeah. The bad news is it's not as easy to predict.
The good news is that we've got this massive new technology that we're really just starting to figure out with artificial intelligence. And I was on a call with an economist from Blackstone a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Look, if you take this if this artificial intelligence works and we take labor productivity from 1% to 2%, that could cut our deficit in half."
No doubt.
So there are some good things that are going on, but there are also a lot of question marks.
No doubt about it. And on the other side, let's explain how that would cut our deficit, what the underlying related mechanics downstream to that are. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with Jeremy Nelson. He's the president of Element Wealth.
From the Sea Roof, you're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is a story about Billy Joe and Bobby Sue, two young lovers with nothing better to do than sit around the house, get high and watch a tube. And here's what happened when they decided to cut loose. They headed down to old El Paso.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio talking to Jeremy Nelson, president of Element Wealth. So, Jeremy, before we went to break, we were just talking about how economic growth can actually address the federal deficit. Explain to the folks how that works.
Yeah, so one thing that's really, really important to understand is that labor productivity is the backbone of long-term economic growth. The idea is that as a worker, right, if you can do more in an hour, then you will get paid more. If you get paid more, you will then consume more, right? So if you're growing your earnings because you are now more productive and you're spending more money, right? And consumption is almost 70% of the economy, right? Well, GDP goes up. If GDP is going up and people are making more money, well, what are you doing? You're paying more taxes, right? And so what ultimately happens is that when the economy grows, and especially with something strong like labor productivity that is fundamentally good, then it raises more money for the government. And, and really, so if you go on the CBO's website and you look at their toggles and you can play with it, if you change the labor productivity assumption from like 1% where it is today to 2%, we go from a 6% deficit. So today our deficit is 6% of GDP, which is more than we did in the Great Depression.
Yep.
Down to 3 over 10 years,
which is the target. By the way, 3.
Yeah. So that's a big thing, and that technology is there. That's why this investment is so important, and it will flow through to the economy. Now, you have people talking about how it's going to displace everybody in the labor force. Look, we've been through all sorts of technological inventions over the years, right? The computer, the internet. And yes, it changes things, but it ultimately creates more jobs down the road. Yeah,
that's right. And jobs that are not even a twinkle in the eye today.
Yeah, things that we haven't even thought about yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the cybersecurity industry today. That was nothing 40 years ago.
Sure. And it's largely why our economy is mostly a service-based economy. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we're manufacturing any less than we were when manufacturing dominated the industries. It's just that we've created all these other new industries.
And we need, because of the technology, we need less people in that manufacturing.
Right.
Right. So I think that there's reason to be optimistic. And yes, if the economy's growing, then more services will be demanded. Now that you could look and go, well, that's creating a lot of lower paying jobs. And, ultimately the government might need to think about things like, do you just really raise the standard deduction to extremely high levels to make sure that, the median household and down is doing fine? There's a lot of things that can be done where you can figure out the budgeting of it. But the reality is that, yes, the future will look different, just like it looks different today than it did 40, 50 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, I think many of the fears are overblown, honestly. I see it as nothing but opening up a wide spectrum of opportunities, which is all good. But so just to do the math for the folks, right now our deficit, latest report from Treasury, pegs it at about $2 trillion, which is a little north of 6% of GDP. So to bring that down to 3%, that means we'd produce $1 trillion deficit, which is still, in my view, unacceptable. But as a percentage of GDP, which is a key metric, let's point that out, debt and deficit ratios to GDP. It's the same thing we do in the private sector with respect to debt.
It's about your ability to service that debt, right? And so you've got to get it down. The levels that we've been at forever are too high.
Yeah.
People always ask me, when are we going to pay the debt off? I'm like, we're not. We don't have to, right? We've just got to get it to where it's under control.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's why you've seen lots of policy advocates that focus on this matter say 3% is the target, and they propose policies to achieve that mainly through economic growth, policies that would stimulate economic growth, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's it, right? So if you think about the fiscal mess that we're in, you've got to do 3 things, right? You have to, at some point you're going to have to raise some revenue somewhere. You've got to control or cut spending, which is a challenge, but something's got to be done on that front. But you also have to do these things in a manner where you're still able to grow.
Yeah.
Because if you kill the growth, you kill the revenue.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's exactly right, because if we're making less money, corporations are generating less profit, all that figures into the tax revenue. It comes to the Treasury.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And then you have the problem of unemployment. That also enters the picture. That means less going into Social Security and Medicare as well.
Well, exactly, right. So, and this is where, in the intermediate term, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the labor market. I do see a potential risk where hiring could be pretty slow because companies are instead investing in artificial intelligence. And you're going to have, an older generation of people who are holding on and working a lot longer than they previously did, which could be a problem for Social Security and Medicare funding.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, because you need workers paying into the system to pay the benefits, and there are some proposals to address that, but that's something that's not getting the attention, in my view, that it needs to. Social Security is, in particular, being effectively insolvent in a short few years.
We just, we continue to kick the can down the road. We've spent so much time and energy on identity politics, and we haven't really gotten down to the brass tacks of the reality of, hey, what do we need to really be focusing on? And what we need to be focusing on is the fiscal house, getting it in order, getting it sustainable. We've got the most powerful and dynamic economy in the world, right? We've got so many great things going on in this country, and we always have and we always will. We just got to start, coming together to come up with some actual common sense proposals as to how we're going to address the challenges.
Hopefully they will. The policies that have come out of the Trump administration that I think are somewhat beneficial to investors. We've got the Trump accounts for newborns, of course, where the government's at least given $1,000 to babies born within a certain time frame. And then even if not, you can still set up an account and contribute to it. That would stimulate investment. And then we got this policy that came out in the last couple of weeks that would allow anyone that doesn't have access to a traditional 401k retirement account through their employer to essentially establish one through this new government portal for that purpose.
Yeah, and now, here's the thing. Everybody already has access to do an IRA or a Roth IRA. Yeah. So there is access there. I think that, the payroll deduction side of it is good. I'll be interested to see the take that people actually have for a program like that, though.
Yeah. Well, so if you have access to that independent of an employer, which has been around a while, what's the value of this policy?
The value of this policy is that you would have 401k limits to it, right?
Okay.
So IRAs are capped out with how much you can put in, depending on your age, $7,500, $8,500 a year. Now, if you're making, $75,000 a year, that's 10%. If you're making, $150,000 a year, you can't quite get that 10% in. An easier solution, honestly, would probably be to just raise the amount that you can put into an individual account.
Yeah.
And then the government doesn't have to run another program.
Yeah. So, because this was hailed, of course, as availing those without access through their employers to similar accounts.
Yeah, but there's no matching, right?
Yeah, nobody's going to match to it.
So you already have the individual option. Just raise the limit on how much you can put in. And you could have two limits. One if you have access to a plan, and one if you don't.
Yeah, makes sense.
It'd be very simple.
You're essentially serving as the employee and the employer in that regard.
Yeah.
When you set those up.
Yeah.
Well, and then you've got what is new, of course, is the one for newborns and any other minors, right?
Yes.
As well.
So I've registered now. I haven't got any emails back on it yet. It's not, the infrastructure's not there yet. But I signed up to do Trump accounts for my kids. Now my kids won't get any of the money because they're a little bit older. But great way to put a little bit of money in, tax free, let it grow for them, and give them a head start.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I don't know if I'm a huge supporter of the government contributing to that.
I am not a proponent. I like the idea of being able to put money in an account for your kids that can grow tax-free and pass on to them to give them a start in life, especially with housing costs where they are. I'm not big on the government just giving more money away.
Well, because we don't have it. We have to go borrow it to put it in there.
It'd be one thing if we were running surplus. It's like, hey, what can we do?
Agreed.
Great, but no, we got to get those deficits under control.
At some point, we got to say no. We just don't have it. And that doesn't seem to exist.
It's kind of a big brother thing there.
Jeremy Nelson, the president of Element Wealth, has been our guest. Thanks for coming on, Jeremy. Enjoy the conversation.
Thanks, Rod.
Yeah, man. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Spring cleaning,
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well Studio. It's Monday. That means Super Talk Outdoors comes your way at 12:05 today. So, we talk a lot in this country, as we should, about the overwhelming number of illegals that have crossed the border, especially during the Biden administration, where they pretty much put the welcome mat out, I think it's safe to say. Now, for us, it's unthinkable that an illegal could participate in our elections. We believe, clear-thinking people at least, believe that elections should be reserved for, American citizens. What a wild thought that is. But the prospect of an illegal serving in elected office is even more unfathomable, radical, crazy. Not so fast, at least in Scotland. You see, in Scotland, they just elected, you can't make it up here, Rhino. They just elected a trans Indian migrant. I had to use all three adjectives. This is a transgender Indian, as in from the nation of India, and also is a migrant, is not a citizen or a permanent resident, but was recently elected to the Scottish Parliament as a member, this was my favorite, a member of the woke Green Party. Are we not surprised at all? Oh, gosh almighty. I don't know if I can say this person's self-ascribed name properly. Q Manivanan or something like that.
Manivanan.
Okay. It depends on where you put the accent on the syllables, right? Manivanan. Is going to earn $100,000 equivalent U.S. dollars despite not having the right to work full-time on his temporary visa. And now he's a member of the dang parliament. And despite what he wants, I'm referring to him as an he. He just wants you to know that. And you see the video of him celebrating his election, and oh my gosh, he's got some green ribbon on his lapel, the Green Party. You can't make it up. Why in the world does Scotland allow a non-citizen to sit in their parliament? That makes no sense to me. I expected more out of the Scots. But there you go.
Well, it happens the same way you wind up with someone like Ilhan Omar in Congress.
Well, that's true. That's disgusting as well.
If you get enough of a particular nationality in one local area, they start to vote for that nationality.
Oh, boy. You're right about that. They're absolutely right about that. So, the clothing brand Patagonia, pretty popular line of clothing. So why can't these people, I'll just preface this, why can't they just make goods and services? Why do they have to be social justice activists? They're promoting a protest in Durham, North Carolina that features drag queens, and Durham City Council member Nate Baker, a self-identified Democratic socialist. And I'm looking at some of the photos here. I don't get it, man. What's the name of this person? This Nate Baker? Stormy Dale is their name. When they're doing their drag queen deal. Or maybe it's Stormy Dale's coming and Nate Baker is... okay, I get it now. Looks like Nate Baker are speaking at this event. And there's a little photo of Nate right next to him there. He's the Durham City Council at large, a self-described democratic socialist. What's the deal with the drag queens? Why do they got to do this? And why does Patagonia have to promote it?
Well, they're trying to save face with that community because they're having to sue a drag queen whose drag name is Patagonia for copyright infringement.
I gotcha. I knew there was the rest of the story there. Fox News, SuperTalk News coming your way, and then another hour of middays. Your hour of middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays, hour 2 of the program on this Monday. Ricky Matthews, Super Talk Outdoors, comes your way at 12:05 today. What else we got going on? The sports team, Sports Talk team, they're going to be doing a remote on Tuesday. Sports Talk Mississippi live tomorrow in Hattiesburg at Ag Up. 7,000 U.S. Highway 49. You can get a quote on a John Deere compact tractor and be entered to win a John Deere generator and pressure washer. We hope to see you there. Don't forget, once again, we're in the Element Wealth studio. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The markets have been hip-hopping over that unchanged line today. The Dow presently in the red, as is, I believe, the NASDAQ and the S&P also trending downward at this moment. Not by a lot, a little. No, the NASDAQ's up now. But the funny money, it's doing pretty good, Rhino. It's up north of $80,000. So that's good stuff for the funny money owners. Crude oil up today, almost $3 to the West Texas Intermediate, $98 a barrel. Brent crude, $104 a barrel. That's largely due to the fact that the president rejected the ceasefire proposal from Iran, said it is, quote, unacceptable, in all caps, that the message. Now, he's headed to visit with President Xi over in China later this week, there to talk trade, the war, and other matters of importance between our two nations. It turns out, once again, they are not adhering to their part of the trade deal. We're not surprised by that. Some they are, some they're not. Also, they're making some rather inexpensive EVs. You've probably seen that they're shipping or want to ship into this country. The problem is, and I support efforts to ban, there's a couple of members of the Congress, I think maybe just in the Senate, that have legislation that would ban the import of these vehicles, these Chinese vehicles. It's because I really had a hard time wrapping my head around this. They are loaded down with cameras to essentially capture on video wherever they go. These cameras can be pointed and capture images, send those back to the CCP. So think about if one enters a United States military installation, as an example, and they're driving around. I don't want them sending pictures back of a U.S. base to China. That's one thing. And the other thing is they have the ability literally to control these vehicles remotely. Think about a toy remote control car, similar to that, literally. Except it goes further. It's my understanding they can lock the doors, lock the windows, take control of the vehicle, and do whatever they want to with it. So you can see acts of terror, as an example, perhaps crashing into military assets, military installations, gathering of U.S. political leaders. You go down the list of the things that could happen. So I think it's wise to pass legislation that would ban the import. And the reason there's concern that they would get bought by American consumers is because in the traditional communist way, the industry is being heavily subsidized by the government. So that's driving the price down like some 20-25% than similar vehicles that are either made in the U.S. or made in our countries that are our allies. So that makes them attractive to consumers, especially with the price of gas elevated. Now, here's the problem. Canada is allowing these things in. And we pretty easily allow movement across our border to the north. That's usually considered very low risk. But if it's a Canadian citizen in one of these vehicles that enters the country, that's a problem. I believe they should be stopped. Now, I don't know what kind of controls we have at the northern border. It's not something we talk about a lot, and I don't read a lot about it. Most of the focus is on our southern border. But our border with Canada is pretty big, pretty long, certainly compared to our southern border. So I'm not sure if we have the ability, the means, literally, to detect and prevent entry of one of these vehicles inside the borders of this country. This is just, to me, Rhino, just another step in the direction of warfare through technology, digital warfare, if you will. Because that's really what this is. Yeah, the vehicle itself is not technically it's a mechanical instrument, but it's totally under the control remotely of the CCP, digitally. That is not a good thing, and we should not allow such vehicles to enter this country. I was fascinated by this story. The ability to control it remotely and essentially navigate it, steer it at whatever speed and direction you want. The Chinese could do that. I hope the president, I know he likes to brag about his relationship with Xi Jinping, the president of China, and I agree with him that you'd rather have a positive than a contentious relationship. And the president is savvy when it comes to dealing with other people, being the consummate deal maker that he is. I just hope he keeps that in mind when he's talking to him. I'm a little worried about that in an effort, I think, to want to make good things happen with them. I just don't trust them. The bottom line, cannot be trusted whatsoever. So hopefully something good will come out of that. This is kind of an interesting story. Pasco County, Florida. They're seeing a trend, significant trend, of kindergartners and first graders arriving at the school not potty trained. 500 students district-wide aren't potty trained. So teachers are spending their time changing diapers and pull-ups in school. I'm not talking about daycare here. So they are considering a policy that would mandate all students to be required to use the bathroom. Who the fuck you have to do that? So here's a breakdown of the demographics. I found this a bit interesting. Foreign-born, 12.3%. Hispanic Latino population, 18 to 20%. Around 4,000 students are English language learner families. This really is incredible. Is this another example of people that have children that shouldn't be propagating? I think so, right? I know that sounds harsh. It sounds inhumane, disrespectful, but it's the truth. We see more and more people that reproduce that really shouldn't be reproducing. What are they thinking? Were they not taught this as part of being a parent, a guardian of a child? That's like a big deal. When your child is able to do that for the first time, that's like a big celebration, right? You want to reinforce that action. This is a good thing, child, that you did this. We're trying to get you off of these diapers so that you can handle this on your own, because you're going to have to do that. Unbelievable that they would send kids to school this way. And as a taxpayer, I'm thinking, I don't want to pay for the teachers to be changing diapers. Good grief. Every day it's just something else. You just say, hold my beer. Here's another crazy thing coming right back in the Element Well studio. We got some text to get to.
Stand up and let's start showing just where our lives are going to.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
What will you do when you want me? Nobody's waiting by your side. You've been running, hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish stride.
Derek and the Dominoes, Layla, the great Eric Clapton on one of the most famous guitar riffs of all time, I would say. So we're seeing more and more, we're seeing in this country, this movement against the billionaires. Oh my gosh, they're the cause of everything bad that ever happened. Note, Rhino, of course, while all these various protesters are speaking out against billionaires, they're using lots of the work product of the billionaires to protest their wealth, I should say. So that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It's kind of like the anti-data center people that use data centers to protest data centers, having not a clue that they're doing that. Well, it turns out that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who you never know might be a candidate for president of these United States one day. She sits, of course, currently in the United States House. She said that the revolution, the American Revolution, was against the billionaires of their time. Now, if you asked a 9th grader, 10th grader, whenever it is you take United States history, if you ask them what was the cause, the underlying reason we had the American Revolution, why it occurred, what were the patriots rebelling against, and you put the billionaires of their time, pretty sure you'd get an F on that paper. You should, at least. Of course, I guess it depends on the teacher who probably aligns with AOC. Yeah, that's right. There was a protest of the billionaires of the time. They would be categorically wrong, of course. But that's what she says. Oh, yeah, the American Revolution was to protest the billionaires of their time. Well, comes now, I get such a kick out of these anti-data center people. It's like it's the modern day climate change nuts is what it looks like. But I just sent you this video, and this is from an individual named Danny Wang. That's Huang. And he's dressed the part, is he not? No surprise. He's an Asian individual. And he is speaking at a Michiganders Against Data Centers rally. Of course, the acronym MAD. Oh, my God. Take a listen.
Tech CEOs and all of their mouthpieces love to keep telling us about how AI is supposed to benefit us. Mark Zuckerberg said AI is going to accelerate humanity's progress. Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, said that AI is the fastest growing business in human history. Jeff Bezos, he said, there has never been a better time to be excited about the future. Now, the question is, the future for who? Because in the last 10 years, Bezos increased his net worth from $35 billion to more than $200 billion. Zuckerberg increased his net worth from $33 billion to more than $250 billion. Larry Ellison increased his net worth from $54 billion to more than $400 billion. And meanwhile, the federal minimum wage in this country has not changed since 2009 from $7.25 an hour.
Unbelievable. So, he says, say no to paid-for policymakers. Say yes to mop up Michigan. Oh, man. Say yes to stopping the greedy, short-sighted AI oligarchs. So, let's see. He posted this on Facebook. That would be Jeff Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, pardon me. So Zuckerberg, Facebook, where are lots of their systems hosted? AWS. And also, who uses Oracle technology to power these particular applications? Zuckerberg and Bezos. What is he using to protest, to publish his protest video? You're an idiot, is the bottom line here. You're a loser, is what you are. And you're jealous. You're insanely resentful of these people that created value for society. You've done nothing. That's exactly what's going on here. You don't deserve to breathe their air. Unbelievable.
Yeah, you'll notice a pattern that emerges when you see more and more of the people that are against data centers. And the pattern's pretty plain. Every single person that speaks out against data centers doesn't have a working understanding of what a data center actually does.
That's totally right. That's 100% right. Have no idea.
There's not a single person on any picket line or at any protest against any data center. There's not a single snarky comment on all of social media made by any person against data centers that actually has a functioning brain that understands what data centers do.
That is 100% right. Couldn't tell you what their purpose is, what their function is, of course, why they're needed, why they're, by the way, they're tapping on their phone. So I've come up with a new way to describe, I'm holding up my smartphone right now. You know what these effectively are? I think you'll agree. These are like remote controls of data centers, right? You're literally controlling what's going on in multiple data centers across the world with every tap. And the cool thing is, you don't have to understand all that. That's exactly what the idea was when this started 30 years ago, is to separate the end user from having to concern themselves. We called it abstracting, by the way. That gave rise to this concept of virtualization. Just means it doesn't matter. No physical, straight, direct connection is required. You just got this thing, and you're talking to the internet, and that's all you got to do. That's it. Unbelievable. So, now, does that mean that we shouldn't proceed with concerns in a responsible, ethical, professional, safe manner? No. Well, you got to do that about anything. You think about the industrialization of our country, and we didn't do that initially. And then we realized, wait, we ain't going to have any air to breathe or water to drink if we don't put a quietus on that. So we did. And that's what's happening now, except we're way smarter now. We have way more technology to address these issues now. And when you see all these crazy people like this, most, of course, of what they're protesting is flat out wrong. It's untrue. But it doesn't matter. That's what they do.
It's the cause du jour.
It's absolutely right. It's a cause, and they'll move away from this in a couple of years, and they'll be on, or less, and they'll move on to something else. And because it's one of those things where, just like we've seen with so many of these imminent catastrophes, you keep predicting, and nothing happens. And then people say, you know what? You're full of it. That's exactly what's going to happen here.
To the point now where Al Gore is warning about global cooling.
Oh, my God. So we went from the polar ice caps melting.
Yeah, there won't be any snow on Mount Fuji 10 years ago now, to, oh, no, we're back to we're not going to be able to grow enough food because it's going to cool off.
Unbelievable. So we've had some discussion, turning our attention to some of the political stuff. Redistricting, right? Big deal. Set to do that across the Supreme Court's districts, at least here in Mississippi. But some states have already done a little work towards that. It didn't go too well in Tennessee. If you think, if you would consider, I guess, strong contention and a bit of chaos in the legislature. But it looks like they're completely, you've seen this, redrawing Memphis, the Memphis area. And that's not going real well for some folks, but I think it's the right thing to do, honestly. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
From the Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So one small little caveat to these new Trump accounts, these 401k plans that folks can set up if their employers don't offer one, is there actually is a little federal match for low-income workers. It's a small amount. It's 50% match up to $2,000 contributed by the individual, so a total of $1,000. That is only eligible or available to those who earn under $35,500 or $71,000 for couples. So to kind of summarize that, if you open up one of these accounts, you're an individual, you earn less than $35,500 a year, you contribute at least up to $2,000 of your contribution, up to $2,000, is matched by the federal government at the rate of 50%. So if you contribute $1,000, federal government adds $500. You contribute $2,000, it adds $1,000. It literally transfers that money to that account. Federal government does. If you contribute $3,000, still $1,000. Maxes out at 50% of the $2,000 individual contribution. So that's how that works. Just wanted to clarify that. So there is a little bit of government assistance, much like the Trump accounts for newborns. That started January 1, 2025, extends through 12/31/2028. All children born, newborns, during that time frame, if the adults, parents, guardians of that child go online, set the account up, government's going to put $1,000 in it. And then you can, of course, continue to contribute up to $5,000 a year on behalf of that child to that account. It cannot be touched until they turn 18. They can start withdrawing at that point. You would pay a 10% penalty on withdrawals, except for certain purposes. I think going to school, buying a house, medical reasons were the three that come to mind. If you withdraw for that purpose, no 10% penalty. Any other purpose, you just want spending money to go buy something else, you're going to pay a penalty. That's the same penalty you pay for early withdrawal on 401k plans. Otherwise, you just let the money sit there until you're eligible under the 401k rules to withdraw. At that point, no early withdrawal penalty. That's the way that works. So, couple of policy changes related to helping Americans save money. It's really the bottom line there. There's a article on our website, supertalk.fm, authored by news director J.T. Mitchell, talking about Representative Benny Thompson. He wasn't happy about the Farm Bill because there was a cut to SNAP. Now, we have to clarify this, Rhino, because these guys are promoting this message that, oh my gosh, they're cutting SNAP and they're cutting Medicaid. Not really. With respect to the SNAP program, it simply says that to qualify, you got to work or be looking for work. In the present age, before the OBBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, was passed, the age threshold for the requirement to be working or seeking work to be eligible for SNAP benefits was 59. Simply increased that to 64. Well, I would hardly say that's cutting anybody's benefits. But that's the way, of course, Thompson and his ilk promote that. And then the other big thing that is I think, widely misunderstood with respect to so-called cuts is that certain categories of legal immigrants are no longer eligible. Illegal immigrants have never been eligible, undocumented. I'm not saying that they don't slip through the cracks, but the law already forbids them, prohibits their eligibility. But for a long time, we have allowed legal documented immigrants, asylees, parolees, refugees, to receive SNAP benefits, Medicaid, even subsidies in the ACA. All we did here was say, you know what, no more. And I think part of the logic behind that is, well, maybe if we take them off all these government welfare programs, they'll get their butts back to where they came, because they're really not legitimate parolees and asylees. We were handing that out like candy without a lot of review and research to ensure, oh, yeah, you truly are escaping oppression in your country. Welcome to the United States.
To the point that you had leftist activists in Mexico just across the border handing out pamphlets and coaching people on what to say to get asylum status.
Ridiculous. So all the government did last July, almost a year ago, is for Medicaid, for ACA, for SNAP. Those are the three big ones. They just said, you know what? No more. If you're an asylee, parolee, a refugee with legal documented status in this country, you're not eligible for these programs. Simple as that. So, again, does it not illustrate that Benny Thompson and the likes of Benny Thompson are once again showing strong support for people who aren't American citizens? And what really galls me, and I know I've said this till I'm blue in the face, we borrow half of every dollar we send out for these programs. We borrow it. Does it make sense to rack up debt to provide these various assistance dollars to people who aren't citizens? It's bad enough we have to borrow money to do it for American citizens, but we exacerbate it by borrowing money to give out on these programs. And that's exactly what's happening. So they're being disingenuous. They want to paint this picture that would tug at the heartstrings, right? It truly is a family, an individual, a couple that are down on their luck, and we're kicking them off the food stamps program. They can't eat anymore. And that's not the case. American citizens still qualify, and the eligibility rules have not changed, with one exception. You got to work or be looking for work beyond the age of 59 up to 64. Pretty sure those were the major changes made to eligibility. I don't think there's anything else involved in that in my research. That's all they did. So this idea that people are losing their SNAP, well, these people they're documented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants shouldn't be on the program. I'm not saying that, again, some aren't, because they are. I believe that. We just make mistakes in the eligibility checking. It's pretty lax, unfortunately. So you're wrong here, Representative Thompson. If they're American citizens who qualify based on income, and the other eligibility requirements, such as looking for work. And the idea originally, you remember this, Rhino, behind the SNAP program is you've lost your job. You've had some change in your employment status. You need to eat. Here's a temporary hand so that you can eat. We don't want anybody to starve in this country, but you got to be out looking for work. Or maybe you're working and your income is so low, it's hard for you to make ends meet, because the amount of the dollar value of food stamps is fairly low. It's not, although you've pointed out that if you economize and you're creative, you could stretch those food stamps a long way, but you can't blow it on stupid stuff, right? Which is what some people do. And I'm talking about eligible food products. Now, fortunately here in Mississippi and other states, we've banned a lot of the sugary snacks and stuff that's not really protein and necessarily nutritious. We banned that so that you spend those tax dollars on food that you can stretch and is good for your health and so forth. So, but Thompson's wrong on this. I will not, he says, I voted no because I will not support a bill that cuts or restricts SNAP assistance and turns its back on the people who depend on it. I just want to make sure folks know the people he's talking about that are no longer eligible are immigrants, not American citizens. But Benny and the likes of Benny, they're more concerned, as you know, about non-citizens than they are citizens. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio with our final segment on this Monday.
Polyupa, Mississippi.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Less conversation, lower action, please. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more fight, a little less fight, a little less fight, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Final segment on this Monday. Ricky Matthews, Super Talk Outdoors, is going to handle it after we close out the show today. He'll be on at 12:05, of course. So just lots of hand-wringing and teeth gnashing and really just trying to gin up frustration directed at the Republican Party for these reforms in the SNAP program. And Benny Thompson, of course, is front and center on that, except he's just wrong, as are they, about what those reforms consisted of. And as we have pointed out, it really, the main thing was you got to work to 64 or be looking for work. And certain classes of legal immigrants are no longer eligible for the benefits. I mean, that's really it. There are no just major changes whatsoever that just kick people off. The vast majority of people that are currently receiving benefits will continue to receive them, or people who meet the eligibility criteria. It's really simple as that. Why do they lie? Don't answer that.
Because idiots believe them.
That's the bottom line. They can say it, and people think, well, that's a sitting member of the U.S. Congress. Certainly they know what they're talking about, and they're telling the truth on this. But they're not. And while I guess, you could say, well, I'm telling the truth, some people are going to get kicked off. Well, yeah, but they should be kicked off. People who legitimately are eligible and are in need are not going to be kicked off. Now, we could argue about whether or not the program should even exist. I'm happy to have that discussion. I wonder myself. I'm a person who believes the private sector ought to step up and help more with this. A lot of folks believe that our religious communities should play a part. I believe companies should. Why does it always have to be government programs? Because they get power out of it. So Benny Thompson can go, look at me, I'm bringing this money home to you. And, of course, he doesn't tell anybody, oh, yeah, but we're borrowing half of it. There's nothing noble about that, nothing creative or innovative. You're not solving any problems. You're just fortunate that we don't have a law that we should that says you got to balance the budget, because all this will be off the table. It'd be gone, totally. You think about it. Well, you can either have Medicare or SNAP. I mean, that's literally where we would be. You can have a military, truly, and law enforcement, FBI, etc., or you can give SNAP away, food stamps away. That's really where we are. On the C Spire text line, we were talking about these new Trump accounts that allow folks that don't have access to 401k retirement programs through their employer. Now the federal government set up a system you can do that. The federal government is the last place on earth I would send money for retirement. So keep in mind that the federal government doesn't invest your money. You have control over that. There are somewhat limited options on that, but they're more traditional type investment securities you would see in a 401k plan. Some people decide to invest in more risky investments, these are kind of middle of the road, still produce a nice return. You can do that in this country, even with moderate risk investments. That's the neat thing about our system and our economy. So pretty much, I think, Rhino, it's indexed ETFs, if I'm not mistaken. It's restricted to that. So you can't go crazy and just go buy a bunch of equity in a publicly traded company, and the government doesn't invest it on your behalf. You select from the portfolio of investment options. Just wanted to make that. If we kick illegals off of stuff like SNAP, won't that make more money available for actual citizens who need it? Yeah, but I got to be clear. Illegals are very scant evidence of illegals participating in SNAP. First, remember those are administered at the state level. The programs are. Second, they're not technically eligible. I'm not saying, I'm going to say again, that they don't slip through. But that's not where the majority of the money goes. It's legal immigrants that are no longer eligible. Legal. There are two exceptions that are a problem. You and I have talked about this. And there's a move, you've seen this in Congress, to even make these two classes ineligible, and those are Cubans and Haitians. And that all goes back to the boat people problem of the 80s, where that's in law and requires 60 votes to undo.
Well, the other
Senate.
wrinkle is illegal parents give birth to anchor baby.
Totally.
Anchor baby is now eligible.
The baby is, but the parents aren't. Totally true, because they're citizens. That's a problem with that, because we let too many across to start with. Out of here today. Back with you again tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.